going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about this album right here. This is J Rocc, Some Cold Rock Stuf, released on Stones Throw Records on April 12th, 2011. With the release of his brand new production album, A Wonderful Letter, just around the corner, now seemed as good a time as any to go back and not only revisit an album that I think is sorely underappreciated in the whole Stones Throw catalog, but also to get ready for what right now is one of my most anticipated albums of 2022. So now that I've gone back and revisited this album a few times over the course of the last week, I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of this album with you guys and let you know why I think it's worth checking out. So with all that being said, yeah, let's talk about this guy. So for those of you who don't know, J Rocc, born Jason Jackson, his DJ career started in the mid-80s in a group called PSK before teaming up with fellow LA DJs like Melo-D and Rhetmatic to form the now legendary DJ crew, the Beat Junkies. From there, he would become J Dilla and Madlib's touring DJ for the support of their collaborative album J-Lib. Since being added to the Stones Throw's roster, he can be seen when his label does a showcase or anniversary tour and has become famous not only for his technical scratching skills, but his absolutely awe-inspiring knowledge and selections of music across a wide variety of genres. But beyond just his DJing, to which he has released some of the world's finest mix CDs imaginable, J Rocc has done a fair bit of musical production and beat making as well, with more than a handful of releases, collaborations, and production credits to his name that surprisingly don't get nearly as much respect as they probably deserve. In 2011, after spending decades making a name and reputation for himself, he and Stones Throw decided to drop some Cold Rock Stuf, a 2-CD, 3-LP album of very eclectic productions that ran the gamut of sample-based hip-hop, house, breakbeats, trip-hop, and turntablism. An interesting little selling point about this album is that it came released with a mystery disc with randomly selected productions. Overall, the album was largely well received critically, with it earning a respectable 78 average on Metacritic, with the highest rating being this, and the lowest rating being this. So where do I stand in all of this? I dig this album. I don't think it's perfect. I think its pacing as a listen is just too schizophrenic for it to be an incredibly enjoyable album list, but there's so many little moments across this album that make it a project that I think is worth listening to. I love the opener. I love the cut and paste update of an old school, take as many samples as you can and use it to open up your album. I think it really sets the tone very well for some of the more playful moments. I do like the song Don't Sell Your Soul Tonight, which follows it. I think it's a nice little meditative, reflective track that's very reminiscent of some of those kinds of moments on DJ Shadow's seminal work Introducing, as well as the track Stop Trying, which does something very similar but has a bit more of a spoken word motif to it that's better outside of the context of the album and just kind of works as its own nice little relaxing downbeat little piece. But the major highlights on here for me are tracks like Through the Tulips, which just has this absolutely addictive flute sample over some pitch perfect drums, as well as the track Stay Fresh, which on this album is criminally short. Thankfully, if you pick up this EP, you can get an extended version of this track, which really gives it some time to breathe with its minorly menacing filtered out sample, its call to arms horns, and those awesome drums from a track that's not coming to me, but I'll put it here so you know what I'm talking about. Those drums really just like set up a super cool sound, and honestly, I think that track was what sold me on here. One of the more unexpected moments is when the album goes kind of housey on the track Party, which very much feels like an updated Latin-influenced version of like a Moody Man track that's all sample-based, but really still has that club-friendly house bump to it. And then there are updates of previous tracks that J Rocc has released across a few different releases on Stones Throw, like Play This 2 and Too Many Clowns, which both use a lot of up-tempo breakbeats, which you don't really hear very often often these days, but there's definitely a vibe to it that I can totally get behind. And I should also stress that at least in the version of this album that I have with the mystery disc, all the productions on there are much more hip-hop based than I can only guess you've got on the other mystery discs, and they honestly feel like they could have been included in the album as well, as they are utterly fantastic hip-hop productions and really show that J Rocc is kind of underrated when it comes to being a hip-hop producer. But ultimately, I think the schizophrenic nature of this album is kind of what holds it back from being a stone cold classic. It's just kind of all over the place. At one moment, you'll have some head-nodding, neck-breaking material on here, and then it'll immediately go into this super meditative moment, like I said, with the track Stop Trying, and it's just completely fucking up the vibe on this entire album. So it makes it sort of difficult to really want to listen to this album as a front-to-back listening experience, and that's kind of a shame, because ultimately J Rocc definitely shows that he is capable of making headbangers as well as some really tasteful, meditative, reflective tracks. And I'm kind of hoping with his latest album, A Wonderful Letter, that he sort of strips back a little bit on some of the more experimental tendencies and just goes for something that's maybe a little bit more straight ahead. All that to say, I still think that you should give this album a listen. Maybe not pick it up on vinyl, maybe just pick it up digitally, but I definitely think you should give it a listen. And if anything, hopefully it will send a signal to Stone's Throw that J Rocc definitely needs to put out more production-oriented releases into the world. But as it stands, this isn't exactly the most enjoyable front-to-back listen, but there's still enough really cool tracks on here that I do think that you should give this guy a shout. And if anything, it should help prime you for whatever he has in store on his brand new album. So yeah, with all that being said, yeah, check this guy out if you haven't, and I'm just gonna leave it there. So that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to this album for yourself, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear this album for yourself, please head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I post music links to any of the albums that I talk about on this channel. As always, make sure you go follow me over on Twitch for Live from the Record Room. There you can hear me play records like the ones that I talk about in these videos, as well as a whole host of other records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about on this channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!